Welcome back to Sunday Vibes, one and all. As you can see, we are back in the Phoenix pub by Oxford Circus, but there's no Christopher Hamill today. We've replaced him with the effervescent. Is that a nice word? It's a good word.
Very nice.
It means fizzing.
Fizzing.
Dougie Critchley. He is absolutely bubbling under the surface. Patrick Van Straten's here. Miserable after an ID3 journey.
Oh my god, man! I don't know what it is, but I feel like all the blood has sloshed to the front of my cranium.
Yeah, they are grim. Honestly, if you're an ID3 owner, look at yourself in the mirror. I know they're like electric.
But if you'd like to sponsor the show, then please
get in touch. As you can see from the title, today we are ranking some of the Premier League's most disappointing players so far. Now, we put a tweet out about this during the week. We'll flash it up on screen here because it's had about 1,000 replies.
People liked it.
There's a lot of angry people out there, I think. Yeah, a lot of people involved in this one. So what we've done is basically taken your suggestions. We're going to say whether we agree or disagree with fans' suggestions from more of a neutral standpoint because there's a lot of angry fan bases out there and a lot of repeat names. Of the 1,000 suggestions, some players were mentioned maybe 600 times.
Really?
Yes. And we will come on to them. Let's start, though, with Tottenham, because there was a lot of suggestions for Tottenham. Teenage Dirtbag says Hugo Lloris, who has not had a good season at all, obviously contributing to the most errors leading to goals of any player in the league. Is he dusted? He's injured at the moment, but is he dusted?
I don't know. I think he's been on a slow downward trajectory for a while, to be honest. I think he was one of the few shining lights of the final days of Pochettino. Like, I was looking back at his expected goals saved, which isn't a perfect metric of goalkeeper performance, but it gives you an indication. And in 18-19 and 19-20, he was saving way more than expected. But it's been a slow downward trend since then. And I just think, whilst I like keepers that can make exceptional saves, you kind of want a keeper that just makes the saves you expect him to make all the time. And look, mistakes come into a game.
Yeah.
Every keeper makes mistakes, but there's just been far too many this season. I think he's made the most mistakes leading to a goal from a goalkeeper in Europe.
Yeah, he has.
And that's a pretty miserable stat. And big games as well. That Bukayo Saka one in the North London derby, huge moment in
this
a tight,
so smug.
in actually a game that was fairly fairly tight at that time. Man City as well. So I just think like this is the beginning of the end. He's probably past his peak for a while now, to be honest, and they need to replace him in the summer. As to who that is.
So would you sell him in the summer? Because he's contract till 2024 and he is 36.
And he is the captain as well. It'd be a big call to get rid of him, but I think you need to be ruthless if you want to improve and get into the top four and challenge for trophies consistently. And I just think he's holding them back at the moment. So I'd probably look to bring in someone,
I'm sure Antonio Conte can say to him, do you think you're as good now as you were when you were 28? Come on. And actually at Spurs, for all their faults, they have got a lot of players who've now been there a long time and can fill the kind of leadership hole.
Yeah.
Like, obviously Kane can do it, but even guys like Eric Dyer have been there for ages. And I think are capable of like taking the reins a little bit. There are also people with experience at big clubs like Højbjerg who I think can step in. But I don't know, has he been the most disappointing player of the season? Probably not, because I don't think we were expecting that much from him. Whereas Heung-min Son, now that's a disappointment.
That is another suggestion here. That was from Mike Madalzi.
Okay.
Mike Mazowski. And he says, love him to bits, but Sonny has been really poor this season, particularly after what he did last season. So you're going disappointed because of the drop in level.
Yeah, and I think that you can see it in Spurs' numbers. Like the amount of XG that Spurs have dropped as a team is pretty much exactly the amount of XG that Son has dropped as an individual per game. More importantly, it's not just that, but they look less dangerous across the board because now teams are just not scared of him. Like, you used to have to be so scared of Son because he could beat you in a load of different ways. Incredibly two-footed, really technical player, could create, could score, and unbelievable pace with the ball. Like a real pace and power player, like a classic kind of pace and power player, really. Well, when he doesn't have as much pace, you can just push up and up and up against Spurs, and you don't really have to be fearful of them. Like, there have been long stretches of the season where Spurs have looked like they have absolutely nobody who can run in behind, and everyone says, "Oh, Harry Kane, he's so dangerous when he drops into the pocket because he's a good passer. He's a good passer for centre forward." But if he doesn't have anyone to pass to, then suddenly they just lose that ability to look dangerous. And as a result, when Kulusevski's been out as well, it just feels like the whole attack falls apart. So I think Son, they essentially gave Son a big contract saying, we are going to gamble that you don't decline very soon and that we can win something with the last peak years of you and Harry Kane.
Yeah.
Because make no mistake, it's going to happen to Harry Kane as well. Like he's not going to be world class forever. It looks like that was a bad bet.
But do you know one thing I'm finding quite interesting is, he's scored in 2 Premier League matches this season, hasn't he? He's got the hat-trick against Leicester, and then was it again? I can't remember who the other goal was against. He's started 20 games. Like, I know that Richarlison's had his injury problems, but at what stage do Tottenham say the form has to change? Like, we have to start Richarlison. I know that he's had awkward timing with his injury problems as well, Richarlison, where Son's been really bad form and Richarlison's been injured. Now Danjuma's there as well. At what stage do Tottenham go, Richarlison's got to start these games now, he's got to be our starting left winger?
Well, I think Richarlison should be starting anyway, given the amount of money they spent on him. But
60 million.
But at the same time, you live in hope that some will recover, because the drop-off is insane. The drop-off is from 23 goals and 7 assists or something last season to a player who looks completely, at best, mid-table this season. I've got to believe that there is a little bit more there than that. So I suppose they hoped at some point he'll recover, and this is still better than the backups they had before they brought in Danjuma and Pedro Porro. So I don't know. I think to a degree Conte didn't have much to work with, but at this point you might say, I don't know, we've got to drop him.
Yeah, I mean, Dylan Shea is also a Tottenham fan. He's got another one here. He says Basuma. He says, still think he will have a good Spurs career, but I expected him to immediately be in our starting 11 alongside Bentancur, and them two being one of the best partnerships. Didn't expect Højbjerg to be clearly ahead of him.
Yeah, I mean, it was a key summer, wasn't it, for Spurs? And I think one of the reasons a lot of people backed Spurs for third, which I certainly did at the start of the season, and they could still finish third. It's not outside of the realms of possibility. Was that improved depth? And Son's form has just, and Richarlison's injuries, Kulusevski's injuries, just meant they haven't had that depth in forward areas. And, Danjuma might change that. But also in midfield, Basuma's performances mean that they haven't really been able to rest Højbjerg and Bentancur when they expected to as well. Yeah. I know Skip's played a few games, and I still think Skip's a useful squad player. Probably not going to be a consistent starter for a team ever challenging for a title, but I think he's useful to have around. But Basuma, there was that interesting quote from Conte about 2 months into his Spurs time saying he's really struggling to get to know our system. I think he was particularly talking about defensively. He was like, he's very good on the ball, but he's not covering what we need to defensively. And you look at Højbjerg's form at the moment, massive performance against Man City last weekend, crucial goals in the Champions League as well. Like, I think he's been, really good this year, to be honest. And Bentancur's, had another solid season as well. So it's very difficult to displace them. But at the same time, Basuma now out with an injury as well. Broken ankle, really serious injury. So, it just hasn't been the start to his Spurs career that you'd have hoped.
I suppose the one kind of positive for them is that move, 22 million in the end? The fee's not astronomical. Yeah. So even if it doesn't quite work out and he ends up being a bit of a squad player, it's not the end of the world. All right, Liverpool. There were so many suggestions.
Where do you want to start?
From you guys at home for Liverpool. Honestly, I think I've never seen as many suggestions across the board. I think every player got named 3 times, other than maybe Alisson. But there was probably more suggestions for Trent than I would say any other player. Him and Fabinho with a joint top. LFC Jack _96 says possibly Trent TBH just because of the standards he usually sets. Obviously, it's only 1 goal, 1 assist this season. It's a massive step back on his usual numbers. Do you think that's just a function of the team, though? I feel like that's more of a function of the team underperforming than him as an individual. I don't know.
I don't know if that's true, because the attack is still very, very good. Like, they haven't been putting the ball in the net as much as you want, but the attack is actually creating a ton of chances. If you look at what they've created, then they're the 3rd best team in the league in attacking terms. Yeah. And I think it's really the defence that's let them down. They've gone from having the 3rd best defence in the league last season to the 12th best this season.
That's nuts.
They have the worst shot quality against in the league, as in, if you take a shot against Liverpool, it has more chance of going in than it does against any other club. That's how bad it is.
Crazy.
But in the past, that's been okay, because it wasn't quite the worst. It was close to it, but they suppressed shots to such an insane degree that it didn't matter too much. Now they're not suppressing shots. So you get a decent number of shots against them, really high quality ones. That has been why they've dropped off. It really has. And it's not been helped by people like Salah having a little drop, Nunez not being able to finish, even though actually his goal numbers are kind of fine. Then again, you look at Trent's numbers, and I think he has like 6 expected goals and assists.
Yeah, he does.
And if he had all of those, maybe we'd say, this isn't quite as bad as it looks. But as we've always said about Trent, you need world-class attacking output from him to make up for some of the weaknesses in his
Yeah.
game, and you haven't got it this season. And I'd say that the weaknesses in his game have been more pronounced this season. Like in the past, I think a little bit much has been made of his defensive frailties. This season, I think everybody's absolutely right that he's been bad defensively. And when Liverpool miss Van Dijk, they really miss Van Dijk, and Fabinho's been bad. I mean, like it. To be honest, it is kind of a team-wide thing. But I wouldn't say Trent has been the worst, but I do think that in a team that is floundering, Trent looks really bad.
Yeah, it's a shame as well because like his expected assist numbers, like they're a little bit back, but they're not massively back. Like it's still putting him at like 4 or 5. I think he'd have put up 12 total assists across the course of last season. So if he was on like 5 now, we'd be saying, okay, it's, like you said, it's not
Yeah.
horrendous.
Yeah.
But the simple fact is he's crossing the ball in and Darwin's heading it 30 yards wide. Like that is becoming an issue quickly. And I also think when Fabinho doesn't have a good season to cover in behind Trent when he pushes into those forward areas, it's insanely noticeable. Like I think the suggestion from modern girls and old-fashioned men of the downfall from Fabinho is absolutely the right one here. I cannot believe what's gone on. What's happened?
Scary.
He's only 29.
It's difficult, isn't it? And you're now looking at that being a player that they didn't need to replace in the next couple of years, or it wasn't an immediate concern. But now you get to the summer, and do they need to sign another defensive midfielder? Do they, or do they trust Bajcetic, who's shone in some games? I watched him against Wolves in the FA Cup, and I thought he was excellent, to be honest. And now he's starting at the weekend, or started last weekend at Wolves. But there's so many issues that don't just point to just things that are happening right now for this season. I think there's really long-term issues there as well, like with Michael Edwards' departure, Julian Ward coming in, now he's stepping down, the club's up for sale or looking for investment, there's been very little interest in it. Why would a player like Jude Bellingham, for example, trust this Liverpool project going forward? It feels like quite a few of that starting 11 still need to be changed in the next couple of years. And already the players that they brought in just don't look quite at the level of the players they've replaced as well, which is there's no shame in that. Liverpool were a phenomenal side for 4 or 5 years. And it just feels like, he's only brand new, but Cody Gakpo, Darwin Núñez, the players they brought into midfield to replace Wijnaldum, Henderson, just aren't quite at that level. And they have just taken quite a few steps back. I'm not saying they're going to be a mid-table team for the next few years, but it's a big ask to get to those levels once again, especially with so much change behind the scenes. So I think there's massive issues at Liverpool, and it's kind of gone unnoticed because Chelsea have been such a big talking point this year with their spending and underperformance. But Liverpool, arguably, having a worse season, given that a lot of their core players were still there, and there hasn't been so much change behind the scenes in the previous year with Abramovich and Bowley coming in. So, yeah, Liverpool, really worrying times. To pick out one player, though, I think is really difficult because I think they've all underperformed. I think they've all been way below their usual levels, except for maybe Thiago.
Yeah. Ooh, except for Thiago. I feel like Thiago's been off it. I haven't seen Thiago play. I don't feel like I've seen him play well yet this season.
I think he's clearly been one of their better players, though. Like he's trying to hold together a midfield that is falling apart, and it's not been like his best season.
Maybe it's because I'm so used to his levels being the elite of the elite.
And also, he doesn't have the legs anymore to actually hold the midfield together entirely by himself. But you always get good defensive output out of him. You always get good progressive passing and creativity out of him. There are other players in this team who, when they're playing badly, they are playing badly. Like, if Fabinho doesn't give you defense, he doesn't give you anything, really.
It's
you
crazy.
You feel like the Luis Diaz injury just in that World Cup break was massive as well. Like, because they've had to, this whole new, Cody Gakpo's had to come in and instantly be a starter pretty much, or like getting regular minutes in there. Luis Diaz, and while Jota was out as well, to have Diaz there who'd really hit the ground running was making a massive difference to that side. And for a long-term injury, when Van Dijk and Jota are also out, like nothing's really gone to plan.
But another thing I don't quite understand is Klopp's idea of playing Gakpo through the middle and then Darwin off the left. Like I always thought Darwin operated in that left-hand space and liked to come in. So I always saw it so consistently at PSV, and Louis van Gaal talked about him wanting to do that at the World Cup as well. And Darwin seemed more natural to go through the middle. But in the recent weeks, we've seen that especially when they've come on as subs, Gakpo stays through the middle and Darwin comes off the left. I wonder whether that is kind of a sign of Jurgen Klopp not trusting Darwin to be his number 9 through the middle and play back to goal and be able to finish chances. And I think that's a pretty
the finishing has been
major
atrocious.
thing.
Yeah, but I don't see it as like a criticism of Núñez so much as I see it as a criticism of Gakpo. Like, I think he's a guy who a lot of us looked at and said, this guy does not have the tools to play wide in the Premier League. He's not a good enough dribbler. He's not fast enough. He's not technical enough. He's not enough of a passer. And all those things I think have been true. But then you also look at him and you say, well, he gets shots and he's really big. so maybe he can be a centre forward. So I actually think Klopp has looked at him and thought, I can't play this guy on the wing. He cannot do it. He doesn't have the skills to do it.
And Diaz is coming back.
So I've got to play him. Maybe I can play him through the middle, and maybe that's where I can get performances out of him. Whereas Nunez at least does have more pace. I don't know. Maybe you just think that would actually work out. Like Nunez, yeah, he's missed a lot of big chances. He's missed the most in the Premier League. I think he's missed 16, though Haaland has missed 14. So it's not like that.
I think
crazy.
the biggest underperformance in terms of XG, though.
Yeah, definitely. But at the same time, he's still got across the league and Champions League. I think he's got 11 goals and assists in about 14 90s.
He'll probably end up with around 20, which is not bad for your first season.
It's really good.
And yeah, like
it just could have been so much more.
And there's obviously more to come from him. Like no one's going to argue that he's been playing particularly well, but he is getting the chances. Whereas Hakpo, the worry is, I didn't see it when they signed him. I still don't see it. That's a big concern from my point of view. But maybe if it weren't for the fact they had Salah, they would play like a diamond and play Hakpo and Nunez as a front two or something. But you still have to play Salah, even when he's taken a step back. He's still their best attacker.
Yeah.
So do we agree with both their suggestions, yeah? Fabinho, Trent. I mean, we could agree with everybody.
Yeah. I mean, Merseyside derby on Monday for the first time feels very competitive and actually massive for both sides.
Huge. I think
to
we
see
might do a
Dyche
quick
do
fire
it.
question on it as well
Love to see
later.
it.
Let's do Manchester United then, because lots of suggestions. Again, hundreds for the same player, Anthony Martial.
I think that's a bit harsh, just because he's been injured. Like you can't rely on Martial's fitness. I don't know why he's still at the club, to be totally honest. I think a ruthless club would have probably got rid of him a couple of years ago. His fitness just isn't good enough. But it's harsh to. I mean, Joe, you'll know more. How many appearances has he made?
Very, very few. I think maybe 6
I think
starts.
it's
seven,
difficult at United.
6 starts.
Picking out a most disappointing player. I think most of your starting 11 has been really quite solid. I think Anthony's doesn't look like he should have cost that much, but he's not been shocking in the minutes he's played. And your other signings have all hit the ground running. I think it's very difficult to pick out a most disappointing player.
I think it's Sancho, easily.
Yeah.
Sancho should be. You paid an insane amount of money for him. He looked phenomenal before this. He should be starting for Manchester United.
He's gonna.
Yeah, but he hasn't up till now, and we're talking about the season so far. That's undeniable. I don't see how anybody could argue he's not your most disappointing player. He should be starting for Manchester United. He hasn't even been fit enough to be trusted with a regular sub role by Ten Hag for most of the season.
I feel difficult hammering him though if he's had like quite a few mental health
Sure,
struggles.
but that is but he's still been disappointing.
Yeah.
Like you would want to get more out of him. Like we're not saying he's a piece of shit. We're saying that you're disappointed in what you've got out of Jadon Sancho this season.
Yeah, I'm probably more disappointed with Martial though. Honestly,
Really?
yeah, just because.
You were expecting big things in the summer, I seem to remember.
Yeah, coming in from pre-season, Martial was our standout player, and it felt like this was his chance to totally own the number 9 role. Like, even though Cristiano Ronaldo was at the club, coming out of that pre-season tour that Cristiano didn't attend, he was the guy. He was playing really well, flowing football. And then first game of the season injured again. No surprise, it's a problem. But then he came back and again scored at a really good rate. Like his underlying numbers and his expected goals, getting shots off from really good positions. And it was like, oh, maybe we finally got the best Anthony Martial here. This is like my hopes were up. And then again, it's just injury after injury after injury after injury. The last time he played a full 90 minutes of Premier League football was February 2021.
Wow.
Like it's. I think the disappointment with Martial comes from the fact that my hopes were so high a few weeks into the season after such a good pre-season, whereas Jadon Sancho obviously had a good pre-season and then was taken out of the picture, so it was kind of like, oh, he's just out of my thoughts almost. Whereas Martial was like in, out, and every time he plays, we look so much better. Like we're infinitely better with Martial on the pitch, but we cannot get him on the pitch, which is probably where I think most Manchester United fans' disappointment comes from. And it wouldn't be a surprise to me to see him sold in the summer. Even though we've got a massive dearth of number 9s, I think that the injuries, I think, must have really frustrated Erik ten Hag at this point.
And injuries in midfield just at a crucial point in the season as well, with the Carabao Cup final coming up, like game against Leeds at the weekend. You've got Barcelona. It's just annoying, just as you really needed it to be, full guns blazing with Casemiro and Eriksen, that they picked up injuries. But they've not been disappointments at all.
No, it happens, doesn't it? Manchester City, Matt King says Bernardo just not been his usual self and already has one foot out of the door. What do you think about Bernardo Silva?
Weird season.
Yeah, I think he's been a little bit off colour, to be honest. But there's been players that have Mahrez was very poor before the World Cup, I thought. Phil Foden's been very poor since the World Cup. What is going on with Aymeric Laporte behind the scenes? Because I think he should be starting. Why is Ruben Dias not starting as well? It's just weird.
They've been injured though. They've had injuries.
They've had injuries, sure, but you need these are your players. This is Laporte, one of the best Premier League centre backs when he's fully fit. Like, he needs to be starting, and there must be something going on behind the scenes for me. But Bernardo Silva, I actually think his numbers are better than his performances. Weirdly, I think he's just looked quite flat, to be honest. And maybe it's a product of wanting to leave for the last few summers and not being able to. Either through the finances of the club that he really wants to join, which seems like it's Barcelona. And I think he turned down PSG at some stage as well. Might not be right on that, but there was definite interest.
So would you let him go then in the summer?
No, because they look like they're going to extend Gundogan's contract, but Kevin De Bruyne's not getting any younger. They need to sign 2 midfielders probably this summer. Calvin Phillips hasn't really worked out either. Is he going to ever get the game time that he would probably look for? Probably not.
But that was a weird move when it happened. Did we all say this? We all said this.
He's much more suited to Man United.
Yeah, but it's good depth. It looks a bit weird because Rodri hasn't been injured, but they kind of bought him in case Rodri got injured, right?
Yeah.
If Rodri gets injured, suddenly and Phillips plays the rest of the season, we're probably all saying, "Oh, good thing they did that."
It's been the reverse, though, hasn't it? Because Phillips has been out for the entire
Yeah.
of the season, pretty much. With that, was it a shoulder injury?
Which is something that we said last year, right? He spent so much of last season out as well that we were like, you don't tend to buy an injury-prone player to back up your not injury-prone player.
Yeah.
But Bernardo Silva, I mean, the weird thing about Bernardo Silva, he has got 7 goals and assists in the league, but his attacking output is down. But it's not like he's doing a more midfielder type role to make up for it. Like, his progressive passing's down. His touches in the middle third are the same, while his touches in the attacking third are down. Progressive carries are down. Like, all this defensive output hasn't improved. Like, everything has either stayed the same or got worse this season for Bernardo Silva. But I do think that there's overall a bit of an issue with City not really having the one-on-one quality they had in the past. There've only been 2 players in the squad this season completing more than 1.5 dribbles a game. One of them was Cancelo, and he's gone. The other's Jack Grealish.
Yeah.
Mahrez has gone from like 1.6 dribbles to 1, and he's completing like 30% of his dribbles. Phil Foden is trying 2.5 dribbles a game and completing under 1. So they don't have the one-on-one quality that sometimes you need, because otherwise, if a team is able to corral Kevin De Bruyne and Erling Haaland, then the City don't look like they have the ways they had in the past of just blowing up your defence with individual quality. When Mahrez was able to complete, 2.5 dribbles a game, or in obviously years ago when they had a peak Sterling or a peak Sane, especially, or even Aguero who could do it, David Silva, people who could find the space or could beat a man, then they had more ways of pulling you apart.
Agreed.
Right now, it's kind of like we're relying on a genius passer and a genius attacking mover. But if you're able to deal with both of those things, you have to hope that Mahrez just has a great moment. And sometimes he does and sometimes he doesn't, because he's 32 now.
Yeah, I feel like there's a real lack of ability to stretch teams in behind. I know that Haaland makes a lot of runs in behind, and it often isn't found. But when they had players like Sterling, when they had Sane who could stretch in behind,
even
it allowed
Jesus,
Jesus. It allowed players like Bernardo Silva to have maybe 5 yards of extra space because the defender was worried about going backwards. When everybody wants the ball to feet, the defensive line can push up an extra 10 yards, and that is potentially why Bernardo Silva is finding it hard to pick up pockets. Hence why his progressive pass numbers are down, his progressive carry numbers are down. I think he just doesn't have as much space because everything's a bit tighter in that Manchester City team. So I can kind of understand that
It's kind of gone under the radar, actually, just quickly. I think Grealish has been really good in the last month or so. Like, his best form of his City career. I know he's probably still not getting the output, but I'm slightly wondering whether he's slightly been misprofiled by his last year at Aston Villa. Like, prior to that, he never really was a massive goals and assists guy. I remember when he first broke out, everyone was like, this guy is so talented, but there's no numbers to back it up. And I think he's just very good at certain things in the game, which is taking on men, winning fouls, bringing the play up the pitch, etc. But whether he's more of a facilitator for other people to get goals rather than he's ever going to be a massive goal scorer or a massive assistant.
He's kind of Iniesta-y when he's at his best. He's obviously not as technically secure, but like that is what you want from him, where he can just burst through midfield and create space for other people. But I think what you were saying about everybody wanting the ball to feet is exactly right. I think at this point, I wonder if you just have to start Alvarez all the time so that you do have a guy who's willing to run off the ball. Because actually, right now, I think if they had a Ferran Torres or a Sterling, I think it would make City a much more diverse, unpredictable, dangerous side.
Yeah,
because currently, they look quite ponderous when they're looking for a goal. Like against Spurs,
slow.
Fantastic defensive performance from Spurs. Don't want to take anything away from it. But City didn't look like they had many ideas.
Yeah, I totally agree. The next one, then, Chelsea. Brad. Let's start. I mean, there's so many names here. In fact, let's start with the most suggested. This was the most suggested player of anyone in there. I know I've said this a couple of times, but this is more than Trent. This was more than Martial, and it's Mason Mount.
Yeah.
I cannot explain how many suggestions were for Mason Mount from both Chelsea fans and regular football fans. Ryan here says Mount, and I was extremely excited to see what he could do under Potter, but it's been disappointing. I mean
he's been off colour, but I think there's been worse players than him. Personally, I don't think Sterling, when he's played, has looked very good at all.
He's been their best attacker, though.
Do you think?
Well, who's been better?
It's very few choices.
Sterling by far leads the side in expected goals and assists, and honestly is the guy who, when I watch them, I'm like, maybe he'll score. I never have looked at Aubameyang or Havertz or, to be honest, Mount this season, or Pulisic, or anyone really, and thought, yeah, that guy's about to score.
But what do we think about Mount? What do we think? Because I see this accusation levelled that
it's so
he's
harsh.
Played so much football over the last few years.
Fair.
It's like he's taken a step back physically. He only started 27 games last season.
But people were hammering him last season when he was playing well. People were hammering him the year before when he was playing well.
I agree.
Chelsea fans just love to attack him. I don't get it.
But he isn't playing well.
He's not playing well at the moment.
He was
but
underrated.
It's very
He was underrated over last season.
He got 21 goals and assists in the
People
league,
were hammering him
didn't
totally unnecessarily. This season, I feel like he has actually taken a step
Yes.
back. When last season people were accusing him of not doing these things when he was doing them, this season he's actually not doing them.
Sure, he's lost a lot of confidence, but who's been more disappointing, I would ask, Kalidou Koulibaly or Mason Mount? For me, it's clearly Koulibaly.
Yeah, though I also think we could
agree.
argue there that they shouldn't have paid that money for a guy at that stage of his career, and we said that at the time.
I agree.
Contract to
but, like, he was
2026,
still, I know it's difficult to judge in Serie A where it's not as physically taxing and there aren't the same level of strikers, etc. But I disagree with that. But he was one of the better defenders in Serie A for years. They probably bought him 2 years late. But at the same time, like, I wasn't just not expecting this level of performance. He's been clearly replaced by Badiashile when he's fit.
He's been great.
Yeah,
He's been awesome. And I just feel like it's harsh to blame Mason Mount for all the struggles of a side that haven't
I'm
had
not blaming
a
Mason
solid
Mount,
place
because I
in
think
midfield.
he's a
The
good
defence has
player.
changed left, right, centre. The goalkeepers had to change. Reece James, Chilwell have been injured.
Yeah.
And everyone just focuses on Mason Mount. I think it's bizarre.
Yeah, I agree. I think he takes an unnecessarily amount of criticism, Mason Mount. But I think the argument of that he has been disappointing this season does stand up, both in the numbers and his performances. Like, we're all massive Mason Mount fans, and have been
the same vibes
and
from
have
you.
been we've been supporters of him against.
That's why he's
the
been
grain.
disappointing.
Yeah, exactly. Because we've been supporting him against the grain over the last few years. We've been saying that he's one of the better attacking midfielders in the league.
How many times did we sit there on like Team Talk
Consistently.
and like we were saying, like, right now, this was last season, we were like, right now Mason Mount over Odegaard. Like, right now Mason Mount like should be starting for England.
Sure.
And now you look at him and you're like, he's hardworking, but
now
it's
I
not
look at
happening.
him and I don't think he should be in their best 11.
Oh, I don't know. I would still start him, I think.
I don't know. It gives me a lot of Rashford vibes from last year. I think Chelsea fans...
Yeah, I agree with
It's very
that.
similar.
I think
he's clearly talented. When he's at his best, he's one of their better players, if not their best attacker.
But do you think...
The attack is rank.
But yeah, the attack is howling, and I'm unconvinced about his role in this Potter system, which is obviously changing quite regularly.
What is Potter's system?
Well, it appears
does
to be
Potter know?
recently, though, more of a 4-3-3, doesn't it? And he's been playing in the midfield, like we saw recently against, I think it was Fulham at home, when he played as an 8 alongside Conor Gallagher. I just don't think it works for him in that role. I don't think he works that deep. I really don't.
Okay, yeah, sure, but I think Enzo should help with that. And even if just Conte got fit, it would
But
help with that.
Enzo, Gallagher, and Matt. I
think Gallagher's a bigger issue there.
He's not an awesome 10 either, because he's not ever been a crazy creator. Like, he's great at getting in dangerous positions, and he's, his goal
But
numbers
is this the
have always been
problem?
really good. But
What's his position? What's his best position?
difficult to say.
Yeah, but he is good enough at everything that I think there's a home for him in practically any formation, except for maybe a 4-4-2. I think you can pretty much always find a home for Mason Mount, or you should be trying to do that.
Even with the likes of Mudryk, Joao Felix, Raheem Sterling's come back, Enzo Fernandez,
certainly start him
Kovacic,
over.
Kante.
You'd certainly start him over Mudryk. Who
What, on the left wing?
Mudryk, well, no, not on the left wing. I think you just play a different formation. Like, Mudryk looks exactly like we kind of thought, which is he looks very bright, but he also looks like he's probably not ready to start week in, week out for Chelsea.
Yeah.
I would still start Mount, because at some point, if Mount plays himself into form, Mount's going to be your best player. I think it's that simple. I think he's better than Havertz.
No, I love Mason Mount, but I'm not convinced he gets in the best 11.
Because they bought about 30 attackers.
Exactly, and that is
which is clearly a sign that they don't like their current ones. So it's quite worrying for Mason Mount.
I mean, he's under contract to 2024 as well. There's only 18 months left.
Talk about Liverpool as well.
The talk about Liverpool, I love.
He would be amazing.
He would be so
side.
good under Klopp. It would really suit him.
Yeah, it would. I totally agree.
City need a couple of midfielders.
He would be amazing at Liverpool.
Yeah. And when we talk about James Maddison, like to me, Mason Mount is actually like a better version of James Maddison.
Thank you. I put that on Twitter the other day. I took absolute pelters for saying if I was City, I'd rather buy Mount than Maddison.
Well, you're correct.
So fingers crossed Mount does get back to it. But he has a slightly disappointing season. Another player that was heavily mentioned, Kai Havertz.
Yeah. It just really hasn't worked out. He's actually had a lot of chances now, and there were so many things that we like to say at the start, adapting to a new country, then got COVID, he's had a few injury issues. But actually, I can't think there can't be that many more Chelsea attackers that have had more minutes over the last year and a half.
He's had 3,000 minutes this year.
And there's just no output. And yes, he's quite good at some things. He's pretty technically secure, but he's not a great athlete. And for a guy of his physique, he's not particularly strong and good at bringing others into play either.
I mean, across his Chelsea career, he's been at 0.3 expected goals every season. Like per 90.
That's pretty good.
And a 0.08 expected assists per 90 every single season. So, he is just a 0.4 expected goals and assists forward.
He's still young, though.
He's
not that young, actually. Is he 23 now?
I think he's 24. But that number is just has been there for Chelsea. I don't see that changing. I don't see it getting a lot better at Chelsea, and I just don't believe the role is there at Chelsea. The only role he's going to work in is playing off a striker for me, and he's being asked to be the striker, and Chelsea haven't invested in a number 9, bizarrely, or they have, Romelu Lukaku, and it didn't work, did it, playing Havertz off him, but that's largely down to other reasons as well. For me, it's probably time to cut the losses on Kai Havertz in the summer.
I always look at Kai Havertz and I think, as you were talking then, I was thinking, I want to say, you know what? I think if he was under an Arteta or a Pep, the kind of football they play, then I could see things being really good for him. And then I think, well, he was under Tuchel and now he's under Potter. Yeah. Those are managers who actually have done a great job getting attacking output out of guys who are maybe a little bit limited, like the stuff that Potter got out of Welbeck.
Yeah.
And their possession managers, and you'd imagine they'd appreciate Havertz, and they must do in some ways because they play him. But yeah, if he doesn't make it work under them, I'm not quite sure where he is going to play. And even maybe it's one of those things where we need to go back and look at what he was particularly good at the Bundesliga, because the Bundesliga is so transition based. You're always against unsettled defenses. I think it might be a space thing in the same way that guys like Timo Werner and actually Nicola Pepe as well. When you watch their highlights when they were breaking through, you always saw them bursting into space and getting huge chances. And now he's playing settled defences, and maybe he just can't do it.
I think maybe just a fresh start is potentially needed. There's been so much.
What's the money they're going to get from as well?
I know they're going to take a big loss, aren't they? But there's been so much turnover at Chelsea. I think that there is going to be.
But then how many strikers
are you buying
sales in the summer?
There's going to be so many sales in the summer.
I could see Bayern doing something with Havertz.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
I could see
him at the time.
And I could see Nagelsmann thinking, I can do something with this guy.
Yeah, and they potentially do need a number 9 in the summer, don't they? And it's looking more and more likely Harry Kane's going to sign a contract. Let's go to some of the other sides in the league then. Aston Villa. Now, this was a really interesting one because lots of suggestions from Villa fans for Matty Cash. Sohan here says Matty Cash for sure went from player of the year to being kept out by 37-year-old Ashley Young. Now, he's only started one game post-World Cup under Unai Emery. I mean, what has happened here? I didn't even realise this.
Yeah, I hadn't really picked up on that, to be honest. I mean, it's difficult to criticise anyone at Villa at the moment because they are actually playing pretty well under Emery. I know they had that bit of a setback last weekend against Leicester and lost 4-2 with a couple of individual errors in there as well. But I think generally they've been really good under Emery.
I think post-World Cup, only 3 teams have taken more points than them. It's like Arsenal, United,
they've taken a bit of a risk selling Ings, but it seems to have got a little bit more out of Watkins. Now he knows he's kind of the main man. In terms of disappointing players there, Leon Bailey, potentially, given that we know how talented he could be. But again, injury issues there. It's difficult to really nail that. And they did try and replace Tyrone Mings in the summer, and Diego Carlos did his, Achilles on the first day. So it's difficult to hammer Mings as well. I don't know. I feel like it's a bit harsh to pull out anyone from Villa at the moment. But Coutinho got replaced.
I was about to say Coutinho.
Well, I didn't like that signing at the time. Didn't make any sense.
I think we would have expected him to be a bit better than this. He was better than this in the second half of last season. Just not good at all. Paid paid a pretty hefty bit of money for him.
Wedges as well.
Yeah, big wages, and he just has rightly lost his place to Wendy.
Yeah, Forest fan here, Ash Young says, Emmanuel Dennis. I appreciate his game time's been limited, but other than the recent United game, his body language, effort, and performances have been absolutely awful. 3 Premier League starts, £20 million fee, by the way, and a contract till 2026.
Paid 20 mil for it.
Yeah, thoughts?
I think a lot of Forest players have been disappointing, to be honest with you. There haven't been many.
Don't put it on Twitter.
We had this argument last week. Me and Pat had a bit of an argument last week about Steve Cooper.
No, it's just he's just done a bad job. But like,
he hasn't.
I think
Horrible. Harsh.
Well, no, just terrible.
But Emmanuel Dennis, let's talk about.
You know, I think like Gibbs White has had impressive moments. Brennan Johnson's had impressive moments. Little
Ryan Yates,
little Nico, I think has clearly established himself as a Premier League quality player. But that's basically it.
You know who's actually played all right? Never thought I'd see the day. Serge Aurier's been okay since coming in.
Yeah,
no jokes.
Solid.
And most disappointing player, I'd actually go with Jesse Lingard.
Yeah.
Not getting in the side.
Just doesn't work.
Big reputation.
Yeah.
That 6 months at West Ham just feels like a lifetime ago now.
I think it's a great shout.
I just think they've had an absolutely lunatic year. They've spent like 184 million euros. They bought 30 players. It's just embarrassing stuff. Like, I mean, in January they were just kind of like, we spent so much in the summer that we have to keep spending because now we've committed so much to staying in the Prem. And now it looks like we might not. We have to commit even more to staying in the Prem. It's like they got themselves in this position. It's really
If
rough.
they stay up though next season, I think they're in a good position.
Yeah,
the
sure.
squad's actually going to be.
Sure,
it
but
would have worked it out a bit.
Well, you'd hope so, because like
They've thrown enough at the wall.
they cannot be this bad again.
Yeah, and I don't even think they've been that bad.
They have been awful. You say you always talk about how they've been so much better since Christmas, but actually since Christmas they've still been 14th, 15th.
They're on a bit
I
of
think
a run.
they only
Though.
lost 1 in 8 games though.
Yeah, but you can get lucky.
Okay.
I think they're lucky. I think they're lucky to be
Let
this
us know in the
far clear of
comments,
the
Team Joe or
relegation.
Team Pat.
I don't think
much.
they probably will get relegated at this point, but I think they can consider themselves very fortunate.
Okay. Well, fingers crossed they do stay up and get better. Leicester, though, is the next suggestion. Jack says Patson Daka. He's had the chance to take the position from Vardy, but hasn't looked at it at all.
Has he had the
this year.
chance?
Yeah.
I guess I haven't paid attention to them.
I'm not
They're
going for Patson
crap.
Daka. I'm going
started
for
9 games.
Wilfred Ndidi. What has happened to Wilfred Ndidi? I know he's had some injury issues, but do you remember a couple of years ago we were genuinely like
60
Man United
million.
should sign him, or at least talking about it, whether it was a good idea or not. But he's had some issues. He's played at centre back at times, but he just looks so far off at the moment, and his effort looks really bad. It's just like he's not fit.
Yeah.
So I've been really disappointed with Wilfred Ndidi. I think Patson Daka's a little bit harsh.
Yeah, he has started 9 games, Patson Daka, in the Prem.
That's not very many.
It's half.
Wilfred Ndidi plays week in week
That's
out.
not that many.
Yeah.
You need more of a run to be like a forward in the Premier League when you're still relatively new to the league. Also, I just never trust Brendan Rodgers' decisions about attackers because again he brings Iheanacho in, and Iheanacho is phenomenal, and you know that as soon as he gets the chance, he'll drop him again because that's what he always does. Same with Daka. I feel like Daka, when he was playing last season, was actually contributing at a pretty reasonable rate. But as soon as he could go back to the guys that he knows and trusts, Rodgers does it.
He hasn't scored in his last 14 games at Daka.
Sure, but I mean, like, it's not like 1490s, is it? But
No.
yeah, sure. I'm not arguing like, oh, he should be absolutely given the starting berth now, but I just think
Yes, like
the expectations we have for him versus the expectations we have for guys like.
Speaking about expectations versus reality, Harvey Barnes as well.
I think everyone's been alright, especially since the World Cup.
I think he's been fine, but across the season, like this is a player that I thought would be challenging for an England spot at this stage of his career. I do think he's a really, really good player, and I just haven't seen it yet.
Isn't it all goals and no assists or something for
like
him
that.
as well?
Did miss a few chances the other week, didn't he?
But missing
Big
chances
chances,
is fine. If he's getting the chances, that's absolutely fine. And you need that, especially with Vardy seriously, like, basically gone.
Tete looks good.
Tete does look
Tete
good.
looked great first week.
Great
I wonder
finish.
what they're going to do against Tottenham today, I believe.
Yes.
Or yesterday. One of the 2 days. Let's go to Palace, where Mitch says Edouard.
Yeah.
I mean, Chris Howell was hyping him up last week on the sofa.
Yeah, he was like, every time Mateta starts over him, I'm furious. It's like Mateta actually has a track record in a top
Edouard
league.
started 12
which Edouard
games this
does not.
season.
I use their
played
best
19
nine,
matches.
which is a bit damning. But yeah, Edouard hasn't worked out really. I don't think
0.2 expected goals this season per 90.
not good enough, and none of their attackers none of their strikers have really been good enough either. So yeah, I definitely go for him. I don't think Gehi and Anderson have been quite as good as they were last year.
Yeah,
either.
I was about to say Joachim Anderson. I feel like he's not been Especially after that first game when he was slinging them diags around the pitch against you boys.
Yeah.
But he had that game and we were like, holy shit, this guy's going to be unbelievable. And then it was like, oh, I'm going to sit this one out for the rest of the year. But like, they had such a good season last year. Maybe they were due for a little bit of a regression. And to be honest, Palace, a bit of stability is what Palace need. Like 1 or 2 years now where they continue to build this squad, continue to take out some of the older players. They brought in Doucouré this season. If they maybe upgrade another couple of areas, think about what life will be like after Zaha, and probably have another think about the fullbacks, then you're starting to look at a team which can get quite ambitious, I think, about pushing into the top half of the table.
Southampton, this guy's called Flowering Snows on Twitter. He says Che Adams.
It always is.
We needed him to step up. He didn't. I mean, his apps across the last 4 seasons, 30, 36, 30 and 20 this season. He's gone 4, 9, 7, 4 in terms of goals. I mean, it's just, the numbers don't change.
Yeah.
He's always underperforming.
You do get no service.
I seem to remember he only had one really exceptional year at Birmingham as well. So maybe they just went a little bit early on that. I think he was playing off a.
But you know what you're going to get from him this now. I don't think you can say Che Adams has been a disappointment this season when it's the same season he's had for the last 3 seasons.
Their disappointment of the season has probably been Nathan Jones as an appointment. Absolute shocker. He'll be fired in the next 2 weeks. I'd be shocked if he's not.
The post-match press conference.
I love his press conferences.
Who was it? Brentford.
Yeah, Brentford.
I think it was Brentford. That was one for the ages.
Yeah, what did you guys? That was
as soon as the City one happened when they beat them in the cup, I was like, oh, we're in trouble here, because that was the one where they were like, oh, they were so pumped. They were like, you've beaten Manchester City. This must be amazing. And he was just like, yeah, surprising, isn't it? Like, given the way the fans talk about me, they're all calling me an idiot. And I was just like, oh no.
There's also, if you go on the Southampton Twitter account and you look at any tweet the club post, look at the replies, because it's maybe a 500 Jones out photos.
Which does, people think that doesn't make a difference. It absolutely makes a difference. He will be gone within a couple of weeks.
Yeah, the toxicity. it's the same way that if we always said this, that if fans had been in the stadium during COVID, then Arteta might not have lasted until now, because the toxicity does just build up.
Oh, definitely.
And now the fans are just you're blaming us for bad results. You can't do that.
Blame the players as well.
It will. Yeah, but sometimes managers get away with blaming the players. I can't think of a single manager who's got away with blaming the fans. Then you're really, really in trouble. But hopefully now they'll maybe think, oh, you know what? We didn't have it so bad with Hasenhüttl. He kept us in the Prem.
It's a difficult appointment to go next, though.
Really difficult. And it's a shame, because you want managers from the EFL who have done reasonable jobs at clubs to get opportunities in the Premier League.
Agreed.
But he's just arrived with so much ego, and he's so arrogant, and he's so dislikable. I don't think I'm being too harsh there. I think he's gone.
Okay, let's do one more side then. West Ham. Mark Horgan on Twitter says Thilo Kehrer.
Nah.
No?
I don't think he's been great, to be honest. I'd probably go with Kehrer.
Some major mistakes in there.
Yeah, very accident prone. It's a bit weird with West Ham, isn't it? They've shown a little bit more in the last couple of weeks.
I feel like they've been unlucky this season.
Their defence is good.
And they got a good draw against Newcastle, which is quite a good result this season.
They've just, put up a mid-table season that they are slightly...
Pat, you know more of the numbers.
I think Bowen is clearly the disappointing guy, because Bowen was your difference-making attacker.
Yeah.
And actually, if you do look at the numbers, the defence has been fine. The defence has been in the top 5 all season when it comes to expected goals against. And over time, that does predict that they would get a little bit better. The attack's been an issue because Antonio has played this season about half as many minutes as he had at the same stage of last season. Scamacca hasn't landed. Paquetá has been playing much more like a proper central defensive midfielder rather than that kind of tweener role where he's contributing to the attack. Bowen's fallen off. Benrahma, to his credit, I think has been actually okay. But yeah, I mean, I still think the defence broadly is doing its job. The attack is not.
I thought Guerd looked great last weekend.
Yeah, he looks good.
And if you're wondering why Pat knows so much about West Ham and you haven't already seen the
debut,
Why You're Wrong. I thought that Pat was going to introduce himself there, but he didn't. Why You're Wrong.
Why You're Wrong.
On West Ham, then please do go and watch
really
it. It's very, very good, and it was very well received by you guys that have watched it.
Not by the West Ham fans.
No?
They were like, we are How dare you say that we're actually okay?
I love it. Okay, let's do some quick fire questions then. Who should take charge of Leeds next?
Ooh,
I liked the Iraola thing, that they can't do.
But they might still be doing that. That might still be on.
What, to get permission from
Vallecano?
It
might still be on. Okay. Phil Hayes saying that it's on pause.
Yeah, they're going for a lot of managers in work, which I don't think is necessarily the right way. But, I put it on Twitter this morning and someone actually pointed out that he doesn't speak great English. But I think Marcelino is a completely different direction as a club.
Yeah.
But he really excelled in Spain with Villarreal. He got to a Europa League semi-finals. He won the Copa del Rey with Valencia as well. Did a good job at Athletic Club. Really solid defensive manager. I think he's been underrated for a while now. Out of work. But I don't know whether his English is good enough. But he'd be my pick.
But then again, there are players in there who I think would be, like Rodrigo and Mark Roca. Rodrigo's out, I guess. But there are a bunch of players in there who would be able to speak with him. And I think his tactical system, he's generally landed pretty well. He normally plays a kind of evolved 4-4-2. I'm pretty certain that this squad could work in that setup. And all these guys are very hardworking. There's plenty of talent here.
Yeah, the squad's really good.
The squad's really good. So
he picks out good players. He develops players as well really nicely. That Valencia squad that you won the Copa del Rey with has been completely ruined since. But Peter Lim sacked him because he didn't do well enough in the league, but won the Copa del Rey, which now, looking at where Valencia have been in the last couple of seasons, just looks another stupid decision from probably the worst owner in Europe.
Yeah. Okay, prediction ahead of Liverpool versus Everton. Monday Night Football. Huge game.
At Anfield.
Everton never win there, but it does feel like there's a but in this game, doesn't it? Deitch comes off the back of that incredible Arsenal result, and he's going to be pumped.
It was an incredible result. It was an amazing performance.
Yeah.
Because you can get a result against a better team. By luck, whereas Everton were the better side. They deserved to win that game. Arsenal were bad, but Everton were really, really, really good.
Yeah, they were great. They
really,
were
really
so
good.
well coached.
And not just good in defence, they were good in attack as well. They created a couple of XG in that game. They deserved to win. However, I don't know.
Fingers crossed Calvert-Lewin's fit.
It's a defence low on confidence. It's a midfield that looks bereft of physicality. I think this could be really difficult for Liverpool. I think it might finish 1-1, but I think it'll be really difficult.
Score draw.
I just feel like Liverpool will always beat Everton at Anfield, and I just don't see it changing. I think it'll be 2-3-0 Liverpool.
Fair.
I would I don't know.
To nil.
But Deitch is exactly the guy who you want, right? When you're going away to Anfield, if you're Everton, because Deitch is going to be like, we are going in there, guys, like with our bayonets fixed.
Yeah.
Like we're going over the top. Like, and everyone loves it. Like he's obviously worked on some simple plans to start with, like basically using Onana as a kind of auxiliary striker. Like they're hitting it long term like they used to with Fellaini, and it was great. But just having a really mobile, athletic midfield who I think will only get better as they learn more about how Dyche wants them to play. I think that is something that's worked against Arsenal this season. It worked for Newcastle as well. But it's about as good a chance as you could give them, given that, like, before the Arsenal game, we were, like, 19th best team in the league.
All right, I'm going to go 2-0.
1-1.
1-1.
1-1, okay. Another prediction then, because by the time we shoot next week, the big game will have happened, won't it? Arsenal versus Manchester City, the table-topping Wednesday fixture.
Worth.
Huge, monumental affair. How do we see it playing out?
The first time that I thought, Arsenal could be a proper side is when they played Man City last year at the Emirates, I think, and they absolutely played them off the park.
And there was a
head
headless, was it from Holding or Gabriel?
It was
Gabriel.
It was something like that,
Gabriel
and
Jesus.
I just thought they were absolutely insane for that first half. It was brilliant to watch. They played them off the park at the peak of their powers, and that's when I really started to think, this is a proper side. Still didn't think they'd do as well as they have, but if you're going on form, confidence, players in form, I know they've had a disappointing result against Everton, but it's got to be Arsenal for me.
For me, I think it's going to be an absolute murky. I think Arsenal are going to roll over Man City.
I think Arsenal have just got to avoid defeat. I honestly think that's more, like, it would be great to win, but avoiding defeat is more important.
You're going 1-1 again?
I kind of think we might do it.
I think Arsenal are going to win this.
Been so good in the big games.
Really do, honestly. I think Man City have looked poor in the big games this season. You think to even the first half against Tottenham, if they put out a display like they did in the first half against Tottenham against Arsenal, they are going to get rolled over. If they play like they did away at Manchester United, they're going to get rolled over. I felt like they've been intimidated a couple of times by crowds. I think Emirates is one of the best atmospheres in the league this season. I think the crowd are going to be so pumped up for it. The players are going to be so pumped up for it. Arteta's going to be going wild on the sidelines.
Maybe
and judging by the FA Cup performance, where Arsenal made 6 changes and City basically played the first 11, I think this is going to be. I'm not going to say a comfortable Arsenal win because City can turn
a rollover.
I'm going to say 2-0 Arsenal.
Fair.
I think Arsenal.
I'd love to see it.
Are definitely better than City.
Everything that's happened this week, you don't want City to win the league off the back of this.
Oh, it'll be interesting to see how that affects them. Obviously, they'll have played Villa before that, but But if Arsenal do beat City, it actually starts to get hard to see City overhauling
Definitely,
Arsenal.
man.
Because at that stage, you're looking at a team who will have 15 games. They'll have one game fewer than Arsenal, and they'd be 8 points behind.
Yeah.
And you start to think, in order to get, say, 89 points, this team might need to win 13 from 15 or something. Like, it starts to get really, really dicey.
Yeah.
So I think people underestimate how big a difference 5-8 points can be.
agree.
But that's why I think avoiding defeat is the main thing. I think Arsenal, they'll have obviously played Brentford by this time, but if Arsenal have
That's a
beaten
big
Brentford,
one, that.
I was going to
That
say,
feels
they just need to get out of
Villa
that.
away on Saturday morning after the City game.
because
That's a
Brentford
rough one.
Brentford have taken 11 of 18 points from
Yeah.
the top
Well,
six.
they
this
beaten
season.
in like 9 or something.
This
It's
is what I
crazy.
mean.
Yeah.
If Arsenal beat Brentford and avoid defeat against City, that's as much as they can do to put the title
I
in their
agree.
hands.
Get a win against Brentford by any means possible. 1-0 doesn't matter.
And then
fully
turn City
focus
over
on
and
City.
it's on. It's big time on. Final one then, personal question. Best film you've seen in the cinema recently?
I've actually been to the cinema in ages, but I watched quite a good film the other day called The Good Nurse with Eddie Redmayne. Pretty dark, actually. It's more of a sort of thriller. He's basically, I don't want to spoil the plot, but he's a bad nurse, actually. And he's killing people.
Okay.
But worth watching.
I went to watch Megan in the cinema the other day.
M3 gun.
Extremely mid. Extremely mid. So
I haven't even
not
seen that advertised.
a best film I've
Really?
seen recently.
I feel like
it's
the advertising's everywhere. The little
Android
dancing
girl,
robot.
Android girl, it's meant to be funny. The issue is that every good bit in the film is in the trailer,
Sure.
which is a classic horror
The trailer
error,
does
isn't
just
it?
tell you everything that's
Yeah,
gonna
exactly.
happen.
You
Yeah.
basically watch the trailer and you've watched Megan, so there's no need to go
It's
and
actually
actually
the same
view
with
it.
The Good Nurse.
Yeah, so have you seen the trailers for the new Scream movie?
Yeah,
I was
every
like,
bit's
I
in
now
there.
have seen like
whole
5
movie.
scenes from this film.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
what happened?
Painful. I watched Warrior last night with
Tom Hardy.
Tom Hardy.
and
One of
Joel
my
Edgerton.
favourite films. Awesome.
Great film. Yeah.
Particularly if you're like a teenager watching this, go watch it. It gets you very pumped up when you're
Gets
in
you
your
pumped.
teens.
Yeah. Exactly. have you watched any good films recently?
I haven't been to the cinema in
can't with a child, can you?
like 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I've seen quite a lot recently.
Although there was an incident when I went to watch Megan. I shushed someone in the
I
cinema.
like that. Good
Rare
for you.
case, honestly.
Who did you shush? What were they?
I'm not gonna lie.
What genre?
I was about as annoyed as it's possible to be in the cinema. It was two ladies in the front, and they were just absolutely appalling. They were appalling. They were reclined, feet on the seats, bags of crisps being open like this, and just chatting at full volume.
Yeah, that's mental.
And just
if you
chatting,
do that.
and literally
film or during the trailers?
during the film, and there was a scene where I actually couldn't hear the scene from them chatting, and I went, right, I've had enough of this, and turned to Chloe, and she was like, no, don't, and I was like, shh, like this. And as I did it, 3 other people in the cinema did it, so you know,
God, that
they're-
must have been powerful for
honestly, and they both like kissed their teeth, like they were like so annoyed at people. But is
Okay.
there anything worse than bad cinema
yeah,
etiquette?
I don't get why they do it. Why are you here?
And then
it's not cheap.
She just took out her phone after that and just spent the entire rest of the film on her phone.
No.
And then you've just got a bright white light just like over here. And
I
just,
text
like,
the authorities,
oh
say
my
the
God.
row, and just say, get down there.
Yeah,
honestly,
they should.
escort them out.
Snipers.
Yeah.
Honestly, so
They
infuriating.
should be like tranquilizer dart into the neck. And it's
Just back of the head, bang, bang, and then you can watch your
Joe
film
just
in
chucks a
peace.
shoe down
If you are a bad cinema goer, please just don't go to
Maybe-
the cinema.
yeah,
the ladies we
reconsider
watch
your
Watch
life.
it at home.
Just be a considerate person.
Exactly. All right, that's it for another episode of Sunday Vibes. Anyway, like we did this week, if you want to get involved in the show, follow us on Twitter because we put tweets out during the week. Thanks for everybody that responded this week. Honestly, nearly 1,000 responses. It is probably the most we've had in a long time. Anything you want to plug? Another why you're wrong?
Yeah, another
about
why you're
yesterday?
wrong, where we're taking a look at the Jorginho to Arsenal move, which I think is a bit of a spicy one.
Yeah.
But yeah, keep your eyes peeled for that and get your suggestions in for stuff that we can cover on there. If you've seen an opinion from me in the past that you think has been shown to be wrong since, then
There's
let me
loads.
know. And the people saying I should do Eddie Howe, I did actually write a script on Eddie Howe, which was the pilot, and unfortunately it never went live.
But it'll come live. We will get
That was the Eddie Howe one. Maybe
As
I'll
soon as
leave
they
it.
start scoring
If
again.
they make the Champions League, I'll update the script and we'll put it up.
And he'll do it on his hands and knees. Anything from you?
Nah, just go watch Why You're Wrong. It's really good.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. See you later. Bye.